Look, the Secret Service did its job. Back in July, after the shooting at the rally in Butler, Pennsylvania, critics lined up to pounce on the Secret Service. And you know what? That criticism was entirely fair. Director Kim Cheadle resigned after a disastrous appearance in front of Congress shortly after the attack. That was the right move. There were serious problems with the security detail that day. But this time around, things seemed to go right from a law enforcement perspective. In a wide-open perimeter at a golf course, the Secret Service snuffed out a threat before the former president was directly in harm's way. And not only are they not getting a lot of credit for doing their jobs, they're actually getting a lot of the same criticism they got following the July assassination attempt. Members of Congress, by the way, on both sides of the aisle, suggesting that the Secret Service failed yesterday, accusing the agency of, among other things, failing to establish a strong perimeter, we'll talk about that, not being transparent about the assassination attempt, and even suggesting that they're compromised.
There was a breakdown in terms of the perimeter, how that was established, and I think there's a bigger issue here.
What we need from the Secret Service is more transparent truth.
You've got a Secret Service, at least in my opinion and in the public's eye, that is compromised and that it lacks in leadership.
Huh? The new acting director, Routh, just started 3 months ago. And one of the things he's saying is that they need more funding, which makes sense since we are now talking about providing candidate Trump with the same amount of protection that he received as actually president. This is President Biden today.
One thing I want to make clear, the service needs more help. And I think the Congress should respond to their needs if they, in fact, need more services.
This was not a case like in Butler, Pennsylvania, where a shooter was able to get within roughly 100 yards of the former president and fire off multiple rounds from an elevated location. The shooter didn't get close. This evening, Acting Director Routh described the incident and how the vigilance of his agents helped thwart the attack.
At approximately 1:30 p.m., former President Trump was playing golf during an off-the-record movement to the Trump International Golf Course. A Secret Service advance agent supporting the front edge of the agency's layered approach to protection encountered an individual attempting to secrete himself in the woodline. This happened, the alleged gunman was on the public side of the fence near the 6th green. A layered approach of security is integral to the Secret Service's protective methodologies, and it's also the key to our success. As former President Trump was moving through the 5th fairway across the course and out of sight of the 6th green, the agent, who was visually sweeping the area of the 6th green, saw the subject armed with what he perceived to be a rifle and immediately discharged his firearm. The subject, who did not have line of sight to the former president, fled the scene. He did not fire or get off any shots at our agent. With reports of gunfire, the former president's close protection detail immediately evacuated the president to a safe location.
I would think that's how it's supposed to work. The Secret Service searches an area prior to their protectee's arrival, snuffs out a threat, gets the protectee out of the harm's way. Acting Director Routh called it textbook. But it is never enough for many. And so this becomes just another example of negative media coverage about law enforcement. By the way, this comes from both sides, and it seems to me that it is totally unfair. Let's ask Anthony Chapa. He served as Assistant Director of the Secret Service, where he oversaw budget, policy, and operations. He was also a special agent in charge of the Los Angeles field office. And Robert D'Amico, he's a former FBI sniper and federal agent with investigative experience. Thank you both for coming on the show. Appreciate it. All right, Mr. Chapa, let me start with you. What do you make of my concern about the reaction to the Secret Service? Is the criticism of what they did fair? Maybe I'm missing something.
Well, no, you're not. And Dan, as the director mentioned, it was as they had trained. You know, we see on television, you see all the agents in close proximity to the president, but what you don't see are the concentric circles of security that go beyond the immediate presence of the president. You know, you have the people who are doing the bomb sweeps. You have the magnetometers. You've got local law enforcement with other rings of security. And as you mentioned, when we were talking about what happened in Pennsylvania, well, there definitely was failure there. And the Secret Service's motto is zero failure. So when we're talking about what happened yesterday in Florida, what happened was textbook. The president advised the service that he was going to go play golf. That was never planned. That was not on an agenda. And he's not a president, so it doesn't have to be. But when they went, they put a special team together, and they went and they were clearing the path, if you will, a secure path for the president to play golf. And those agents that were a hole and a half ahead of him, spotted the threat. That was the risk. When you take an off the record movement, there's a risk. They saw a threat. The threat came from a very vulnerable area. They did what they were trained to do, and it worked.
Yeah,
and it may not have been clean, but it worked.
Robert D'Amico, the former president said in a Truth Social post, "I want to thank the U.S. Secret Service, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw and his office of brave and dedicated patriots, and all of law enforcement for the incredible job done at Trump International in keeping me safe. The job done was absolutely outstanding." So even with the former president thanking law enforcement, it just seems bizarre to me that you've got a lot of these legislators, both Republicans and Democrats. You got some in particularly the right-leaning media criticizing the Secret Service, and I just don't get it.
I just think that the critic gets the more attentions, the more clicks, the more viewers, and it's easier to come out. I always love Roosevelt's. If you're not in the arena, stop. But when we talk about this was a non-planned movement. So in order to sweep a golf course that size beforehand, you'd love to have the resources, put dogs out there and walk through it. You're still going to have the agents a couple of holes ahead of him doing what they did. But what I do think is that the Pennsylvania, the fact that happened, I think there was complacency in that one. And people were complacent with doing these all the time and not thinking it was going to happen. I don't know if the agent would have taken a shot if Pennsylvania hadn't happened. He would have investigated it. But I think he felt empowered to do the right thing and disrupt the sniper's assassination attempt. Because if someone had just taken a shot at the guy in the roof in Pennsylvania, it would have alerted everyone, and he probably would not have been able to get behind that rifle and do what he did. This time, it went right. And then you look at local law enforcement putting the license plate out and having this guy in custody in less than 30 minutes.
Right.
That's a perfect example.
Right, which just, again, this is what infuriates me. But let's talk about this issue about the perimeter of the golf course. Mr. Chapa, let me play Director Rowe at the press conference. This happened a couple of hours ago. He was asked about this, and here's his response, number 3.
How many times did your agents go around the perimeter and scope out the golf course during the 12 hours that this guy was holed up in the shrubbery?
So this was an off-the-record movement. It wasn't a site that was on his scheduled, it wasn't part of his schedule. So there was no posting up of it because he wasn't supposed to have gone there in the first place.
Anthony Chapa, that's a fairly self-evident response, but it seems to be not enough for some.
Well, we're talking about having a level of security that the president might have. If the president was going to go play golf, he would have given his security team, the staff would have supported this hours in advance, if not days in advance. And the service would have gone and done an advance that included a full sweep with dogs, canine, individuals going through. But this was off the record. It happened, and the service put together their team immediately to do what happened.
So let me ask you about that. So do you think that the former president should now have the same level of protection that a president gets? And if that's the case, how big a deal is that? Meaning, how much change has to happen? How much funding has to be added to allow something like that to happen, Mr. Chapa?
Well, it's a weird answer because the campaign wants the security, but in most cases, the campaign doesn't want to plan out the event because they want to be able to call an audible and say, we're supposed to go to Chicago, but instead we're going to go to St. Louis. And so there's a change in the campaign structure, so it makes it difficult for the Secret Service to do a proper advance. A president would have a schedule. Now, President Trump had that when he was president, but the service has already claimed that they have augmented the security to do that. So I think we're going to see changes in personnel, use of technology, and planning and communication between security and the staff.
You know, Robert D'Amico, I hadn't thought about that, about the kind of planning that goes when you are the president, right? You have the schedule, and so the Secret Service can sort of examine it in a kind of regimented way. Does that mean if former President Trump now does get that same level, that he's going to have to inform Secret Service more about exactly what he plans on doing?
I think he will, because again, it's a much bigger apparatus that you have to move, and the advance agents going to a place, sending dogs through, getting all that in. So it's just much bigger that way. He knows what it takes because he was president, but his campaign is going to find that there's going to be a lot of friction in that because, like I said, they want to be able to pivot. Hey, we're not doing well in this state, so we're going to go there. Now, do you have two advanced teams to start pushing out? But the one thing that you talk about in this was a non-planned movement. One of the best security is not doing what anyone knows you're going to do. Overseas, when we'd try to pick a route, we'd actually roll dice. We'd have a number of routes taken, and we'd roll the dice. Whatever number came up, that's the route we're going to take. You talk about no one knowing, him just saying, hey, I want to play golf. Knowing someone sitting out there for 12 hours, I think they're going to look at his cell phone data. How many days did he do that? Did he do it Saturday? Did he do it last weekend? How long had he been planning this? And do you really think someone's going to sit out there? The likelihood, now that you know, it's a different story. But again, the likelihood of saying, hey, I want to go play golf, thinking someone had been sitting out there 12 hours waiting for that to happen is not a likely scene. Now, of course, it happened. So you're going to have to do, just like the last one, they're going to have to improve on it. Great after action from the last one because they did everything properly here. They couldn't search a golf course minutes before getting notified they're going.
And Mr. Chapa, it just does seem to me that it doesn't help for morale, right? That you've got a successful mission here. They did it right. The best job the Secret Service can do is to try and stay in the background, right? In something like this, it's impossible. But they stopped it from happening, and yet, again, give former President Trump credit. He's thanking them. He's saying you did a great job. But you have all these other people on the sidelines, both in the media and in Congress, saying, oh, the Secret Service, they're so bad. I mean, that's not helpful.
Well, sure, it is. But the fact is, every day that the Secret Service has their protectee, whether it's the president, the vice president, President Trump, a visiting head of state, when that day is our Super Bowl. You win when you take your protectee from a protected zone to where they're going and back. That's your win, and that's a big morale boost for our guys. But going to this guy being there 12 hours ahead, well, we don't know that for sure. He had a GoPro. GoPro could be connected to his cell phone. Maybe his cell phone was there and registered 12 hours of non-movement in one place. That's something our friends at the FBI are going to use their technological expertise to show us, to do this review of what happened, learn from it, and prevent it from ever happening. And again,
Robert D'Amico and Anthony Chapa, thank you both so much for coming on the show. And I'm just going to say it. Thank you to law enforcement for what they do every day. And thank you to the Secret Service. Thank you to the local sheriff's department. Thank you, guys. We appreciate it. Still ahead.
We appreciate the support.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your screen. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.